Chapter 7 Relentless, the network is always on. Humans are used to being monitored. For millions of years, we have been watched and tracked by other animals, as well as by other humans. Family members, friends, and neighbors have always wanted to know what we do and feel, and we have always cared deeply how they see us and what they know about us. Social hierarchies, political maneuvers, and romantic relationships involve a never-ending effort to decipher what other people feel and think, and occasionally to hide our own feelings and thoughts. When centralized bureaucratic networks appeared and developed, one of the bureaucrats' most important roles was to monitor entire populations. Officials in the Qin Empire wanted to know whether we were paying our taxes or plotting resistance. The Catholic Church wanted to know whether we paid our tithes and whether we masturbated. The Coca-Cola Company wanted to know how to persuade us to buy its products. Rulers, priests, and merchants wanted to know our secrets in order to control and manipulate us. Of course, surveillance has also been essential for providing beneficial services. Empires, churches, and corporations needed information in order to provide people with security, support, and essential goods. In modern states, sanitation officials want to know where we get our water from and where we defecate. Healthcare officials want to know what illnesses we suffer from and how much we eat. Welfare officials want to know whether we are unemployed, or perhaps abused by our spouses. Without this information, they cannot help us. In order to get to know us, both benign and oppressive bureaucracies have needed to do two things. First, gather a lot of data about us. Second, analyze all that data and identify patterns. Accordingly, empires, churches, corporations, and healthcare systems, from ancient China to the modern United States, have gathered and analyzed data about the behavior of millions of people. However, in all times and places, surveillance has been incomplete. In democracies like the modern United States, legal limits have been placed on surveillance to protect privacy and individual rights. In totalitarian regimes like the ancient Qin Empire and the modern USSR, surveillance faced no such legal barriers but came up against technical boundaries. Not even the most brutal autocrats had the technology necessary to follow everybody all the time. Some level of privacy was therefore the default even in Hitler's Germany, Stalin's USSR, or the copycat Stalinist regime set up in Romania after 1945. Gheorghe Iosifescu, one of the first computer scientists in Romania, recalled that when computers were first introduced in the 1970s, the country's regime was extremely uneasy about this unfamiliar information technology. One day in 1976, when Iosifescu walked into his office in the governmental Central de Calcul, Center for Calculus, he saw sitting there an unfamiliar man in a rumpled suit. Iosifescu greeted the stranger, but the man did not respond. Iosifescu introduced himself, but the man remained silent. So Iosifescu sat down at his desk, switched on a large computer, and began working. The stranger drew his chair closer, watching Iosifescu's every move. Throughout the day, Iosifescu repeatedly tried to strike up a conversation, asking the stranger what his name was, why he was there, and what he wanted to know. But the man kept his mouth shut and his eyes wide open. When Iosifescu went home in the evening, the man got up and left too, without saying goodbye. Iosifescu knew better than to ask any further questions. The man was obviously an agent of the dreaded Romanian secret police, the Securitate. The next morning, when Iosifescu came to work, the agent was already there. He again sat at Iosifescu's desk all day, silently taking notes in a little notepad. This continued for the next 13 years, until the collapse of the communist regime in 1989. After sitting at the same desk for all those years, Iosifescu never even learned the agent's name. 1. Iosifescu assumed that other Securitate agents and informers were monitoring him outside the office. 2. His expertise with a powerful and potentially subversive technology made him a prime target. But in truth, the paranoid regime of Nicolae Ceausescu regarded all 20 million Romanian citizens as targets. If it was possible, Ceausescu would have placed every one of them under constant surveillance. He actually made some steps in that direction. Before he came to power, in 1965, The Securitate had just one electronic surveillance center in Bucharest and 11 more in provincial cities. By 1978, Bucharest alone was monitored by 10 electronic surveillance centers, 248 centers scrutinized the provinces, and an additional 1,000 portable surveillance units were moved around to eavesdrop on remote villages and holiday resorts. 2. When, in the late 1970s, Securitate agents discovered that some Romanians were writing anonymous letters to Radio Free Europe criticizing the regime, Ceausescu orchestrated a nationwide effort to collect handwriting samples from all 20 million Romanian citizens. Schools and universities were forced to hand in essays from every student. Employers had to ask each employee to submit a handwritten CV and then forward it to the Securitate. "What about retirees and the unemployed?" asked one of Ceausescu's aides. "Invent some kind of new form," commanded the dictator. "Something they will have to fill in." Some of the subversive letters, however, were typed, so Ceausescu also had every state-owned typewriter in the country registered, with samples filed away in the Securitate archive. People who possessed a private typewriter had to inform the Securitate of it, hand in the typewriter's fingerprint, and ask for official authorization to use it. 3. But Ceausescu's regime, just like the Stalinist regime it modeled itself on, could not really follow every citizen 24 hours a day. Given that even Securitate agents needed to sleep, it would probably have required at least 40 million of them to keep the 20 million Romanian citizens under constant surveillance. Ceausescu had only about 40,000 Securitate agents. 4. And even if Ceausescu could somehow conjure 40 million agents, that would only have presented new problems, because the regime needed to monitor its own agents, too. Like Stalin, Ceausescu distrusted his own agents and officials more than anyone else, especially after his spy chief, Ion Mihai Pasipa, defected to the United States in 1978. Politburo members, high-ranking officials, army generals, and Securitate chiefs were living under even closer surveillance than Ceausescu. As the ranks of the secret police swelled, more agents were needed to spy on all these agents. 5. One solution was to have people spy on one another. In addition to its 40,000 professional agents, the Securitate relied on 400,000 civilian informers. 6. People often informed on their neighbors, colleagues, friends, and even closest family members. But no matter how many informants the secret police employed, gathering all that data was not sufficient to create a total surveillance regime. Suppose the Securitate succeeded in recruiting enough agents and informers to watch everyone 24 hours a day. At the end of each day, every agent and informer would have had to compile a report on what they observed. Securitate headquarters would have been flooded by 20 million reports every day, or 7.3 billion reports a year. Unless analyzed, it was just an ocean of paper. Yet where could the Securitate find enough analysts to scrutinize and compare 7.3 billion reports annually? These difficulties in gathering and analyzing information meant that in the 20th century, not even the most totalitarian state could effectively monitor its entire population. Most of what Romanian and Soviet citizens did and said escaped the notice of the Securitate and the KGB. Even the details that made it into some archive often languished unread. The real power of the Securitate and the KGB was not an ability to constantly watch everyone, but rather their ability to inspire the fear that they might be watching, which made everyone extremely careful about what they said and did. 7. Sleepless agents. In a world where surveillance is conducted by the organic eyes, ears, and brains of people like the Securitate agent in Ceausescu's lab, even a prime target like Ceausescu still had some privacy, first and foremost within his own mind. But the work of computer scientists like Ceausescu himself was changing this. Already in 1976, the crude computer sitting on Ceausescu's desk could crunch numbers much better than the Securitate agent in the nearby chair. By 2024, we are getting close to the point when a ubiquitous computer network can follow the population of entire countries 24 hours a day. This network doesn't need to hire and train millions of human agents to follow us around, it relies on digital agents instead. And the network doesn't even need to pay for these digital agents. Citizens pay for the agents on our own initiative, and we carry them with us wherever we go. The agent monitoring Ceausescu didn't accompany Ceausescu into the toilet and didn't sit beside the bed while Ceausescu was having sex. Today, our smartphone sometimes does exactly that. Moreover, many of the activities Iosifescu did without any help from his computer, like reading the news, chatting with friends, or buying food, are now done online, so it is even easier for the network to know what we are doing and saying. We ourselves are the informers that provide the network with our raw data. Even those without smartphones are almost always within the orbit of some camera, microphone, or tracking device, and they too constantly interact with the computer network in order to find work, buy a train ticket, get a medical prescription, or simply walk down the street. The computer network has become the nexus of most human activities. In the middle of almost every financial, social, or political transaction, we now find a computer. Consequently, like Adam and Eve in paradise, we cannot hide from the eye in the clouds. Just as the computer network doesn't need millions of human agents to follow us, it also doesn't need millions of human analysts to make sense of our data. The ocean of paper in Securitate headquarters never analyzed itself. But thanks to the magic of machine learning and AI, computers can themselves analyze most of the information they accumulate. An average human can read about 250 words per minute. 8. A Securitate analyst working 12-hour shifts without taking any days off could read about 2.6 billion words during a 40-year career. In 2024, language algorithms like ChatGPT and Meta's Llama can process millions of words per minute and read 2.6 billion words in a couple of hours. 9. The ability of such algorithms to process images, audio recordings, and video footage is equally superhuman. Even more important, the algorithms far surpass humans in their ability to spot patterns in that ocean of data. Identifying patterns requires both the ability to create ideas and the ability to make decisions. For example, how do human analysts identify someone as a suspected terrorist who merits closer attention? First, they create a set of general criteria, such as reading extremist literature, befriending known terrorists, and having technical knowledge necessary to produce dangerous weapons. Then they need to decide whether a particular individual meets enough of these criteria to be labeled a suspected terrorist. Suppose someone watched 100 extremist videos on YouTube last month, is friends with a convicted terrorist, and is currently pursuing a doctorate in epidemiology in a laboratory containing samples of Ebola virus. Should that person be put on the suspected terrorists list? And what about someone who watched 50 extremist videos last month and is a biology undergraduate? In Romania, in the 1970s, only humans could make such decisions. By the 2010s, humans were increasingly leaving it to algorithms to decide. Around 2014-15, the U.S. National Security Agency deployed an AI system called Skynet that placed people on a suspected terrorists list based on the electronic patterns of their communications, writings, travel, and social media postings. According to one report, that AI system engages in mass surveillance of Pakistan's mobile phone network, and then uses a machine learning algorithm on the cellular network metadata of 55 million people to try and rate each person's likelihood of being a terrorist. A former director of both the CIA and the NSA proclaimed that we kill people based on metadata. 10. Skynet's reliability has been severely criticized, but by the 2020s, such technology has become far more sophisticated and has been deployed by a lot more governments. Going over massive amounts of data, algorithms can discover completely new criteria for defining someone as suspect that have previously escaped the notice of human analysts. 11. In the future, algorithms could even create an entire new model for how people are radicalized, just by identifying patterns in the lives of known terrorists. Of course, computers remain fallible, as we shall explore in depth in Chapter 8. They may well classify innocent people as terrorists or may create a false model for radicalization. At an even more fundamental level, it is questionable whether the system's definition of things like terrorism are objective. There is a long history of regimes using the label terrorist to cover any and all opposition. In the Soviet Union, anyone who opposed the regime was a terrorist. Consequently, when an AI labels someone a terrorist, it might reflect ideological biases rather than objective facts. The power to make decisions and invent ideas is inseparable from the capacity to make mistakes. Even if no mistakes are committed, the algorithm's superhuman ability to recognize patterns in an ocean of data can supercharge the power of numerous malign actors, from repressive dictatorships that seek to identify dissidents to fraudsters who seek to identify vulnerable targets. Of course, pattern recognition also has enormous positive potential. Algorithms can help identify corrupt government officials, white-collar criminals, and tax-evading corporations. The algorithms can similarly help flesh-and-blood sanitation officials to spot threats to our drinking water, wink with a frown 12, help doctors to discern illnesses and burgeoning epidemics, wink with a frown 13, and help police officers and social workers to identify abused spouses and children. 14. In the following pages, I dedicate relatively little attention to the positive potential of algorithmic bureaucracies, because the entrepreneurs leading the AI revolution already bombard the public with enough rosy predictions about them. My goal here is to balance these utopian visions by focusing on the more sinister potential of algorithmic pattern recognition. Hopefully, we can harness the positive potential of algorithms while regulating their destructive capacities. But to do so, we must first appreciate the fundamental difference between the new digital bureaucrats and their flesh-and-blood predecessors. Inorganic bureaucrats can be on 24 hours a day and can monitor us and interact with us anywhere, anytime. This means that bureaucracy and surveillance are no longer something we encounter only in specific times and places. The healthcare system, the police, and manipulative corporations are all becoming ubiquitous and permanent features of life. Instead of organizations with which we interact only in certain situations, for example, when we visit the clinic, the police station, or the mall, they are increasingly accompanying us every moment of the day, watching and analyzing every single thing that we do. As fish live in water, humans live in a digital bureaucracy, constantly inhaling and exhaling data. Each action we make leaves a trace of data, which is gathered and analyzed to identify patterns. Under-the-skin surveillance. For better or worse, the digital bureaucracy may not only monitor what we do in the world, but even observe what is happening inside our bodies. Take, for example, tracking eye movements. Since the early 2020s, CCTV cameras, as well as cameras in laptops and smartphones, have begun to routinely collect and analyze data on the movements of our eyes, including tiny changes to our pupils and irises lasting just a few milliseconds. Human agents are barely capable of even noticing such data, but computers can use it to calculate the direction of our gaze, based on the shape of our pupils and irises and on the patterns of light they reflect. Similar methods can determine whether our eyes are fixating on a stable target, pursuing a moving target, or wandering around more haphazardly. From certain patterns of eye movements, computers can then distinguish, for example, moments of awareness from moments of distraction, and detail-oriented people from those who pay more attention to context. Computers could infer from our eyes many additional personality traits, like how open we are to new experiences, and estimate our level of expertise in various fields ranging from reading to surgery. Experts possessing well-honed strategies display systematic gaze patterns, whereas the eyes of novices wander aimlessly. Eye patterns also indicate our levels of interest in the objects and situations we encounter, and distinguish between positive, neutral, and negative interest. From this, it is possible to deduce our preferences in fields ranging from politics to sex. Much can also be known about our medical condition and our use of various substances. The consumption of alcohol and drugs, even at non-intoxicating doses, has measurable effects on eye and gaze properties, such as changes in pupil size and an impaired ability to fixate on moving objects. A digital bureaucracy may use all that information for benign purposes, such as by providing early detection for people suffering from drug abuse and mental illnesses. But it could obviously also form the foundations of the most intrusive totalitarian regimes in history. 15. In theory, the dictators of the future could get their computer network to go much deeper than just watching our eyes. If the network wants to know our political views, personality traits, and sexual orientation, it could monitor processes inside our hearts and brains. The necessary biometric technology is already being developed by some governments and companies, like Elon Musk's Neuralink. Musk's company has conducted experiments on live rats, sheep, pigs, and monkeys, implanting electrical probes into their brains. Each probe contains up to 3,072 electrodes capable of identifying electrical signals and potentially transmitting signals to the brain. In 2023, Neuralink received approval from U.S. authorities to begin experiments on human beings, and in January 2024 it was reported that a first brain chip was implanted in a human. Musk speaks openly about his far-reaching plans for this technology, arguing that it can not only alleviate various medical conditions such as quadriplegia, forelimb paralysis, but also upgrade human abilities and thereby help humankind compete with AI. But it should be clear that at present the Neuralink probes and all other similar biometric devices suffer from a host of technical problems that greatly limit their capabilities. It is difficult to accurately monitor bodily activities, in the brain, heart, or anywhere else, from outside the body, whereas implanting electrodes and other monitoring devices into the body is intrusive, dangerous, costly, and inefficient. Our immune system, for example, attacks implanted electrodes. 16. Even more crucially, nobody yet has the biological knowledge necessary to deduce things like precise political opinions from under-the-skin data like brain activity. 17. Scientists are far from understanding the mysteries of the human brain, or even of the mouse brain. Simply mapping every neuron, dendrite, and synapse in a mouse brain, let alone understanding the dynamics between them, is currently beyond humanity's computational abilities. 18. Accordingly, while gathering data from inside people's brains is becoming more feasible, using such data to decipher our secrets is far from easy. One popular conspiracy theory of the early 2020s argues that sinister groups led by billionaires like Elon Musk are already implanting computer chips into our brains in order to monitor and control us. However, this theory focuses our anxieties on the wrong target. We should of course fear the rise of new totalitarian systems, but it is too soon to worry about computer chips implanted in our brains. People should instead worry about the smartphones on which they read these conspiracy theories. Suppose someone wants to know your political views. Your smartphone monitors which news channels you are watching and notes that you watch on average 40 minutes of Fox News and 40 seconds of CNN a day. Meanwhile, an implanted Neuralink computer chip monitors your heart rate and brain activity throughout the day and notes that your maximum heart rate was 120 beats per minute and that your amygdala is about 5% more active than the human average. Which data would be more useful to guess your political affiliation, the data coming from the smartphone or from the implanted chip? 19. At present, the smartphone is still a far more valuable surveillance tool than biometric sensors. However, as biological knowledge increases, not least thanks to computers analyzing petabits of biometric data, under-the-skin surveillance might eventually come into its own, especially if it is linked to other monitoring tools. At that point, if biometric sensors register what happens to the heart rate and brain activity of millions of people as they watch a particular news item on their smartphones, that can teach the computer network far more than just our general political affiliation. The network could learn precisely what makes each human angry, fearful, or joyful. The network could then both predict and manipulate our feelings, selling us anything it wants, be it a product, a politician, or a war. 20. The end of privacy. In a world where humans monitored humans, privacy was the default. But in a world where computers monitor humans, it may become possible for the first time in history to completely annihilate privacy. The most extreme and well-known cases of intrusive surveillance involve either exceptional times of emergency, like the COVID-19 pandemic, or places seen as exceptional to the normal order of things, such as the occupied Palestinian territories, the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region in China, the region of Kashmir in India, Russian-occupied Crimea, the US-Mexico border, and the Afghanistan-Pakistan borderlands. In these exceptional times and places, new surveillance technologies, combined with draconian laws and heavy police or military presence, have relentlessly monitored and controlled people's movements, actions, and even feelings. 21. What is crucial to realize, though, is that AI-based surveillance systems are being deployed on an enormous scale, and not only in such states of exception. 22. They are now part and parcel of normal life everywhere. The post-privacy era is taking hold in authoritarian countries ranging from Belarus to Zimbabwe. 23. As well as in democratic metropolises like London and New York. Whether for good or ill, governments intent on combating crime, suppressing dissent, or countering internal threats, real or imaginary, blanket whole territories with a ubiquitous online and offline surveillance network, equipped with spyware, CCTV cameras, facial recognition and voice recognition software, and vast searchable databases. If a government wishes, its surveillance network can reach everywhere, from markets to places of worship, from schools to private residences. And while not every government is willing or able to install cameras inside people's homes, algorithms regularly watch us even in our living rooms, bedrooms, and bathrooms via our own computers and smartphones. Governmental surveillance networks also routinely collect biometric data from entire populations, with or without their knowledge. For example, when applying for a passport, more than 140 countries oblige their citizens to provide fingerprints, facial scans, or iris scans. 24. When we use our passports to enter a foreign country, that country often demands that we provide it, too, with our fingerprints, facial scans, or iris scans. 25. As citizens or tourists walk along the streets of Delhi, Beijing, Seoul, or London, their movements are likely to be recorded. For these cities, and many others around the world, are covered by more than 100 surveillance cameras on average per square kilometer. Altogether, in 2023 more than 1 billion CCTV cameras were operative globally, which is about 1 camera per 8 people. 26. Any physical activity a person engages in leaves a data trace. Every purchase made is recorded in some database. Online activities like messaging friends, sharing photos, paying bills, reading news, booking appointments, or ordering taxis can all be recorded as well. The resulting ocean of data can then be analyzed by AI systems to identify unlawful activities, suspicious patterns, missing persons, disease carriers, or political dissidents. As with every powerful technology, these systems can be used for either good or bad purposes. Following the storming of the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, the FBI and other U.S. law enforcement agencies used state-of-the-art surveillance systems to track down and arrest the rioters. As reported in a Washington Post investigation, these agencies relied not only on footage from the CCTV cameras in the Capitol, but also on social media posts, license plate readers throughout the country, cell tower location records, and pre-existing databases. One Ohio man wrote on Facebook that he had been in Washington that day to witness history. A subpoena was issued to Facebook, which provided the FBI with the man's Facebook posts, as well as his credit card information and phone number. This helped the FBI to match the man's driver's license photo to CCTV footage from the Capitol. Another warrant issued to Google yielded the exact geolocation of the man's smartphone on January 6, enabling agents to map his every movement from his entry point into the Senate chamber all the way to the office of Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Relying on license plate footage, the FBI pinpointed the movements of a New York man from the moment he crossed the Henry Hudson Bridge at 6 hours 6 minutes and 8 seconds on the morning of January 6, on his way to the Capitol, until he crossed the George Washington Bridge at 23 hours 59 minutes and 22 seconds that night, on his way back home. An image taken by a camera on Interstate 95 showed an oversized "Make America Great Again" hat on the man's dashboard. The hat was matched to a Facebook selfie in which the man appeared wearing it. He further incriminated himself with several videos he posted to Snapchat from within the Capitol. Another rioter sought to protect himself from detection by wearing a face mask on January 6, avoiding live streaming, and using a cell phone registered in his mother's name, but it availed him little. The FBI's algorithms managed to match video footage from January 6, 2021, to a photo from the man's 2017 passport application. They also matched a distinctive Knights of Columbus jacket he wore on January 6 to the jacket he wore on a different occasion, which was captured in a YouTube clip. The phone registered in his mother's name was geolocated to inside the Capitol, and a license plate reader recorded his car near the Capitol on the morning of January 6. 27. Facial recognition algorithms and AI searchable databases are now routinely used by police forces all over the world. They are deployed not only in cases of national emergencies or for reasons of state security, but for everyday policing tasks. In 2009, a criminal gang abducted the 3-year-old Gui Hao while he was playing outside his parents' shop in Sichuan Province, China. The boy was then sold to a family in Guangdong Province, about 1,500 kilometers away. In 2014, the leader of the child trafficking gang was arrested, but it proved impossible to locate Gui Hao and other victims. The appearance of the children would have changed so much, explained a police investigator, that even their parents would not have been able to recognize them. In 2019, however, a facial recognition algorithm managed to identify the now 13-year-old Gui Hao, and the teenager was reunited with his family. To correctly identify Gui Hao, the AI relied on an old photograph of his, taken when he was a toddler. The AI simulated what Gui Hao must look like as a 13-year-old, taking into account the drastic impact of maturation as well as potential changes in hair color and hairstyle, and compared the resulting simulation to real-life footage. In 2023, even more remarkable rescues were reported. Yuval Lei was abducted in 2001 when he was 3 years old, and Hao Chen went missing in 1998, also at age 3. The parents of both children never gave up hope of finding them. For more than 20 years, they crisscrossed China in search of them, placed advertisements, and offered monetary rewards for any relevant information. In 2023, facial recognition algorithms helped locate both missing boys, now adult men in their 20s. Such technology currently helps to find lost children not only in China, but also in other countries like India, where tens of thousands of children go missing every year. 28. Meanwhile, in Denmark, the soccer club Brøndby began in July 2019 to use facial recognition technology in its home stadium to identify and ban football hooligans. As up to 30,000 fans stream into the stadium to watch a match, they are asked to remove masks, hats, and glasses so a computer can scan their faces and compare them to a list of banned troublemakers. Crucially, the procedure has been vetted and approved in accordance with the EU's strict GDPR rules. The Danish Data Protection Authority explained that the use of the technology would allow for more effective enforcement of the ban list compared to manual checks, and that this could reduce the queues at the stadium entrance, lowering the risk of public unrest from impatient football fans standing in queues. 29. While such usages of technology are laudable in theory, they raise obvious concerns about privacy and governmental overreach. In the wrong hands, the same techniques that can locate rioters, rescue missing children, and ban football hooligans can also be used to persecute peaceful demonstrators or enforce rigid conformism. Ultimately, AI-powered surveillance technology could result in the creation of total surveillance regimes that monitor citizens around the clock and facilitate new kinds of ubiquitous and automated totalitarian repression. A case in point, Iran's hijab laws. After Iran became an Islamic theocracy in 1979, the new regime made it compulsory for women to wear the hijab. But the Iranian morality police found it difficult to enforce this rule. They couldn't place a police officer on every street corner, and public confrontations with women who went unveiled occasionally aroused resistance and resentment. In 2022, Iran relegated much of the job of enforcing the hijab laws to a countrywide system of facial recognition algorithms that relentlessly monitor both physical spaces and online environments. 30. A top Iranian official explained that the system would identify inappropriate and unusual movements, including failure to observe hijab laws. The head of Iran's Parliamentary Legal and Judicial Committee, Musa Ghazan-Farabadi, said in another interview that the use of face recording cameras can systematically implement this task and reduce the presence of the police, as a result of which there will be no more clashes between the police and citizens. 31. Shortly afterward, on September 16, 2022, the 22-year-old Mahsa Amini died in the custody of Iran's morality police, after being arrested for not wearing her hijab properly. 32. A wave of protests erupted, known as the Woman, Life, Freedom Movement. Hundreds of thousands of women and girls removed their headscarves, and some publicly burned their hijabs, and danced around the bonfires. To clamp down on the protests, Iranian authorities once again turned to their AI surveillance system, which relies on facial recognition software, geolocation, analysis of web traffic, and pre-existing databases. More than 19,000 people were arrested throughout Iran, and more than 500 were killed. 33, on April 8, 2023, Iran's chief of police announced that beginning on April 15, 2023, an intense new campaign would ramp up the use of facial recognition technology. In particular, algorithms would henceforth identify women who choose not to wear a headscarf while traveling in a vehicle, and automatically issue them an SMS warning. If a woman was caught repeating the offense, she would be ordered to immobilize her car for a predetermined period, and if she failed to comply, the car would be confiscated. 34. 2 months later, on June 14, 2023, the spokesperson of Iran's police boasted that the automated surveillance system sent almost 1 million SMS warning messages to women who had been captured unveiled in their private cars. The system was apparently able to automatically determine that it was seeing an unveiled woman rather than a man, identify the woman, and retrieve her cell phone number. The system further issued 133,174 SMS messages requiring the immobilization of vehicles for 2 weeks, confiscated 2,000 cars, and referred more than 4,000 repeat offenders to the judiciary. 35. A 52-year-old woman named Miriam shared with Amnesty International her experience with the surveillance system. The first time I received a warning for not wearing a headscarf while driving, I was passing through an intersection when a camera captured a photo and I immediately received a warning text message. The second time, I had done some shopping, and I was bringing the bags into the car, my scarf fell off, and I received a message noting that due to violating compulsory veiling laws, my car had been subjected to systematic impoundment for a period of 15 days. I did not know what this meant. I asked around and found out through relatives that this meant I had to immobilize my car for 15 days. 36. Miriam's testimony indicates that the AI sends its threatening messages within seconds, with no time for any human to review and authorize the procedure. Penalties went far beyond the immobilization or confiscation of vehicles. The Amnesty report from July 26, 2023, revealed that as a result of the mass surveillance effort, countless women have been suspended or expelled from universities, barred from sitting final exams, and denied access to banking services and public transport. 37. Businesses that didn't enforce the hijab law among their employees or customers also suffered. In one typical case, a woman employee at the Land of Happiness amusement park east of Tehran was photographed without a hijab, and the image circulated on social media. In punishment, the Land of Happiness was closed down by Iranian authorities. 38. Altogether, reported Amnesty, the authorities shut down hundreds of tourist attractions, hotels, restaurants, pharmacies, and shopping centers for not enforcing compulsory veiling laws. 39. In September 2023, on the anniversary of Mahsa Amini's death, Iran's parliament passed a new and stricter hijab bill. According to the new law, women who fail to wear the hijab can be punished by heavy fines and up to 10 years in prison. They face additional penalties including confiscation of cars and communication devices, driving bans, deductions in salary and employment benefits, dismissal from work, and prohibition from accessing banking services. Business owners who don't enforce the hijab law among their employees or customers face a fine of up to 3 months of their profits, and they may be banned from leaving the country or participating in public or online activities for up to 2 years. The new bill targets not only women, but also men who were revealing clothing that shows parts of the body lower than the chest or above the ankles. Finally, the law mandates that Iranian police must create and strengthen AI systems to identify perpetrators of illegal behavior using tools such as fixed and mobile cameras. 40. In coming years, many people might be living under total surveillance regimes that would make Ceausescu's Romania look like a libertarian utopia. Varieties of surveillance. When talking about surveillance, we usually think of state-run apparatuses, but to understand surveillance in the 21st century, we should remember that monitoring can take many other forms. Jealous partners, for example, have always wanted to know where their spouses were at every moment and demanded explanations for any little deviation from routines. Today, armed with a smartphone and some cheap software, they can easily establish marital dictatorships. They can monitor every conversation and every movement, record phone logs, track social media posts and web page searches, and even activate the cameras and microphones of a spouse's phone to serve as a spying device. The US-based National Network to End Domestic Violence found that more than half of domestic abusers used such stalkerware technology. Even in New York, a spouse may find themselves monitored and restricted, as if they lived in a totalitarian state. 41. A growing percentage of employees, from office workers to truck drivers, are also now being surveilled by their employers. Bosses can pinpoint where employees are at any moment, how much time they spend in the toilet, whether they read personal emails at work, and how fast they complete each task. 42. Corporations are similarly monitoring their customers, wanting to know their likes and dislikes, to predict future behavior, and to evaluate risks and opportunities. For example, vehicles monitor their drivers' behavior and share the data with the algorithms of the insurance companies, which raise the premiums they charge bad drivers and lower the premiums for good drivers. 43. The American scholar Shoshana Zuboff has termed this ever-expanding commercial monitoring system surveillance capitalism. 44. In addition to all these varieties of top-down surveillance, there are peer-to-peer systems in which individuals constantly monitor one another. For example, the TripAdvisor Corporation maintains a worldwide surveillance system that monitors hotels, vacation rentals, restaurants, and tourists. In 2019, it was used by 463 million travelers who browsed 859 million reviews and 8.6 billion lodgings, restaurants, and tourist attractions. It is the users themselves, rather than some sophisticated AI algorithm, who determine whether a restaurant is worth visiting. People who ate in the restaurant can score it on a 1 to 5 scale, and also add photos and written reviews. The TripAdvisor algorithm merely aggregates the data, calculates the restaurant's average score, ranks the restaurant compared with others of its kind, and makes the results available for everybody to see. The algorithm simultaneously ranks the guests, too. For posting reviews or travel articles, users receive 100 points, for uploading photos or videos, 30 points, for posting in a forum, 20 points, for rating establishments, 5 points, and for casting votes for others' reviews, 1 point. Users are then ranked from level 1, 300 points, to level 6, 10,000 points, and receive perks accordingly. Users who violate the system's rules, for example, by submitting racist comments or trying to blackmail a restaurant by writing an unjustified bad review, may be penalized or kicked out of the system altogether. This is peer-to-peer surveillance. Everybody is constantly grading everybody else. TripAdvisor doesn't need to invest in cameras and spyware or develop hyper-sophisticated biometric algorithms. Almost all the data is submitted and almost all the work is done by millions of human users. The job of the TripAdvisor algorithm is only to aggregate human-generated scores and publish them. 45. TripAdvisor and similar peer-to-peer surveillance systems provide valuable information for millions of people every day, making it easier to plan vacations and find good hotels and restaurants. But in doing so, they have also shifted the border between private and public spaces. Traditionally, the relationship between the customer and a waiter, say, was a relatively private affair. Entering a bistro meant entering a semi-private space and establishing a semi-private relationship with the waiter. Unless some crime was committed, what happened between guest and waiter was their business alone. If the waiter was rude or made a racist remark, you could make a scene and perhaps tell your friends not to go there, but few other people would hear about it. Peer-to-peer surveillance networks have obliterated that sense of privacy. If the staff fails to please a customer, the restaurant will get a bad review, which could affect the decision of thousands of potential customers in coming years. For better or worse, the balance of power tilts in favor of the customers, while the staff find themselves more exposed than before to the public gaze. As the author and journalist Linda Kinstler put it, before TripAdvisor, the customer was only nominally king. After, he became a veritable tyrant, with the power to make or break lives. 46. The same loss of privacy is felt today by millions of taxi drivers, barbers, beauticians, and other service providers. In the past, stepping into a taxi or barbershop meant stepping into someone's private space. Now, when customers come into your taxi or barbershop, they bring cameras, microphones, a surveillance network, and thousands of potential viewers with them. 47. This is the foundation of a non-governmental peer-to-peer surveillance network. The social credit system. Peer-to-peer surveillance systems typically operate by aggregating many points to determine an overall score. Another type of surveillance network takes this score logic to its ultimate conclusion. This is the social credit system, which seeks to give people points for everything and produce an overall personal score that will influence everything. The last time humans came up with such an ambitious points system was 5,000 years ago in Mesopotamia, when money was invented. One way to think of the social credit system is as a new kind of money. Money is points that people accumulate by selling certain products and services, and then use to buy other products and services. Some countries call their points dollars, whereas other countries call them euros, yen, or renminbi. The points can take the form of coins, banknotes, or bits in a digital bank account. The points themselves are, of course, intrinsically worthless. You cannot eat coins or wear banknotes. Their value lies in the fact that they serve as accounting tokens that society uses to keep track of our individual scores. Money revolutionized economic relations, social interactions, and human psychology. But like surveillance, money has had its limitations and could not reach everywhere. Even in the most capitalist societies, there have always been places that money didn't penetrate, and there have always been many things that lacked a monetary value. How much is a smile worth? How much money does a person earn for visiting their grandparents? 48. For scoring those things that money can't buy, there was an alternative non-monetary system, which has been given different names: honor, status, reputation. What social credit systems seek is a standardized valuation of the reputation market. Social credit is a new points system that ascribes precise values even to smiles and family visits. To appreciate how revolutionary and far-reaching this is, let's examine in brief how the reputation market has hitherto differed from the money market. This will help us understand what might happen to social relations if the principles of the money market are suddenly extended to the reputation market. One major difference between money and reputation is that money has tended to be a mathematical construct based on precise calculations, whereas the sphere of reputation has been resistant to precise numerical evaluation. For example, medieval aristocrats graded themselves in hierarchical ranks such as dukes, counts, and viscounts, but nobody was counting reputation points. Customers in a medieval market usually knew how many coins they had in their purses and the price of every product in the stalls. In the money market, no coin goes uncounted. In contrast, knights in a medieval reputational market didn't know the exact amount of honor that different actions might accrue, nor could they be sure of their overall score. Would fighting bravely in battle bring a knight 10 honor points, or 100? And what if nobody saw and recorded their bravery? Indeed, even assuming it was noticed, different people might assign it different values. This lack of precision wasn't a bug in the system, but a crucial feature. Calculating was a synonym for cunning and scheming. Acting honorably was supposed to reflect an inner virtue, rather than a pursuit of external rewards. 49. This difference between the scrupulous money market and the ill-defined reputation market still prevails. The owner of a bistro always notices and complains if you don't pay for your meal in full. Every item on the menu has a precise price. But how would the owner even know if society failed to register some good deed they performed? Whom could they complain to if they weren't properly rewarded for helping an elderly customer or for being extra patient with a rude customer? In some cases, they might now try complaining to TripAdvisor, which collapses the boundary between the money market and the reputation market, turning the fuzzy reputation of restaurants and hotels into a mathematical system of precise points. The idea of social credit is to expand this surveillance method from restaurants and hotels to everything. In the most extreme type of social credit systems, every person gets an overall reputation score that takes into account whatever they do and determines everything they can do. For example, you might earn 10 points for picking up trash from the street, get another 20 points for helping an old lady cross the road, and lose 15 points for playing the drums and disturbing the neighbors. If you get a high enough score, it might give you priority when buying train tickets or a leg up when applying to university. If you get a low score, potential employers may refuse to give you a job, and potential dates may refuse your advances. Insurance companies may demand higher premiums, and judges may inflict harsher sentences. Some people might see social credit systems as a way to reward prosocial behavior, punish egotistical acts, and create kinder and more harmonious societies. The Chinese government, for example, explains that its social credit systems could help fight corruption, scams, tax evasion, false advertising, and counterfeiting, and thereby establish more trust between individuals, between consumers and corporations, and between citizens and government institutions. 50. Others may find systems that allocate precise values to every social action demeaning and inhuman. Even worse, a comprehensive social credit system will annihilate privacy and effectively turn life into a never-ending job interview. Anything you do, anytime, anywhere, might affect your chances of getting a job, a bank loan, a husband, or a prison sentence. You got drunk at a college party and did something legal but shameful? You participated in a political demonstration? You're friends with someone who has a low credit score? This will be part of your job interview, or criminal sentencing, both in the short term and even decades later. The social credit system might thereby become a totalitarian control system. Of course, the reputation market always controlled people and made them conform to the prevailing social norms. In most societies, people have always feared losing face even more than they have feared losing money. Many more people commit suicide due to shame and guilt than due to economic distress. Even when people kill themselves after being fired from their job or after their business goes bankrupt, they are usually pushed over the edge by the social humiliation it involves rather than by the economic hardship per se. 51. But the uncertainty and the subjectivity of the reputation market have previously limited its potential for totalitarian control. Since nobody knew the precise value of each social interaction, and since nobody could possibly keep tabs on all interactions, there was significant room for maneuver. When you went to a college party, you might have behaved in a way that earned the respect of your friends, without worrying what future employers might think. When you went to a job interview, you knew none of your friends would be there. And when you were watching pornography at home, you assumed that neither your bosses nor your friends knew what you were up to. Life has been divided into separate reputational spheres, with separate status competitions, and there were also many off-grid moments when you didn't have to engage in any status competitions at all. Precisely because status competition is so crucial, it is also extremely stressful. Therefore, not only humans but even other social animals like apes have always welcomed some respite from it. 52. Unfortunately, social credit algorithms combined with ubiquitous surveillance technology now threaten to merge all status competitions into a single never-ending race. Even in their own homes or while trying to enjoy a relaxed vacation, people would have to be extremely careful about every deed and word, as if they were performing on stage in front of millions. This could create an incredibly stressful lifestyle, destructive to people's well-being as well as to the functioning of society. If digital bureaucrats use a precise points system to keep tabs on everybody all the time, the emerging reputation market could annihilate privacy and control people far more tightly than the money market ever did. Always on. Humans are organic beings who live by cyclical biological time. Sometimes we are awake, sometimes we are asleep. After intense activity, we need rest. We grow and decay. Networks of humans are similarly subject to biological cycles. They are sometimes on and sometimes off. Job interviews don't last forever. Police agents don't work 24 hours a day. Bureaucrats take holidays. Even the money market respects these biological cycles. The New York Stock Exchange is open Monday to Friday, from 9:30 in the morning to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and is closed on holidays like Independence Day and New Year's Day. If a war erupts at 4:01 on a Friday, the market won't react to it until Monday morning. In contrast, a network of computers can always be on. Computers are consequently pushing humans toward a new kind of existence in which we are always connected and always monitored. In some contexts, like healthcare, this could be a boon. In other contexts, like for citizens of totalitarian states, this could be a disaster. Even if the network is potentially benign, the very fact that it is always on might be damaging to organic entities like humans, because it will take away our opportunities to disconnect and relax. If an organism never has a chance to rest, it eventually collapses and dies. But how will we get a relentless network to slow down and allow us some breaks? We need to prevent the computer network from taking complete control of society, not just in order to give us time off. Breaks are even more crucial to give us a chance to rectify the network. If the network continues to evolve at an accelerating pace, errors will accumulate much faster than we can identify and correct them. For while the network is relentless and ubiquitous, it is also fallible. Yes, computers can gather unprecedented amounts of data on us, watching what we do 24 hours a day. And yes, they can identify patterns in the ocean of data with superhuman efficiency. But that does not mean that the computer network will always understand the world accurately. Information isn't truth. A total surveillance system may form a very distorted understanding of the world and of human beings. Instead of discovering the truth about the world and about us, the network might use its immense power to create a new kind of world order and impose it on us.